Of course, as France continues to pound ISIS, U.S. officials are now reporting that Russia is conducting a significant number of strikes in the country, both by sea and the long-range bombers. Earlier, I spoke with retired Lieutenant Colonel Bill Cowan, and he said Russia is willing to do what President Obama has not been.
Russia does not care if an innocent civilian dies when they're firing cruise missiles or dropping bombs. Russia is going to go after the head of the snake right there in Raqqa, and they're going to pound Raqqa hard. And I think the French are going to do the same thing while we dilly-dally around. And let me say this, Maria, when you're pounding those guys hard and they're worried about their own survival, they don't have time to be wondering about planning operations and thinking about killing us.
Joining us right now is retired Navy captain and Fox News military contributor Chuck Nash. Also with me here on location is Fox News senior correspondent Geraldo Rivera. Dagan McDowell is in New York along with Morgan Ortagus in New York. Sir, thank you very much for joining us this morning. What are your thoughts this morning as we hear of this increased attack, not just from France, but also from Russia now?
Good morning, Maria. I think that Bill Cowan is spot on as usual. Here's the thing. The Russians, if you look at the history of their military operations in Afghanistan, they were absolutely brutal. It didn't work out too well for them, but that doesn't mean that's not the way they're going to operate going forward. The other thing is just take a look at the evidence, and it's on our air almost every day. You'll see weapons release video provided by the Russian military, and you'll see the X here, and then all of a sudden the bomb blows up over to the right, and then they slew it back over. They're not a very precision-oriented military. They are brute force, they're in your face, and the civilian casualties are going to go up. The French got targets from us that if we knew about the targets, why didn't we hit them? It's because those targets probably involved collateral damage that we were unwilling to accept. Here's the bottom line in a sentence. That is, we have limited our surgical staff to that which a chiropractor can use, and now it's time to cut out the cancer, and we're bringing in the cutters. And a surgeon will tell you a chance to cut is a chance to cure.
Geraldo Rivera.
You know, I have tremendous respect and affection for Captain Nash and for Colonel Cowan. But I also have experience in a place called Kunduz, Afghanistan, the first city we liberated in the fight to get rid of the Taliban and al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. That city has a hospital run by Doctors Without Borders. We just about 2 months ago hit that hospital by mistake when Kunduz fell back to the Taliban, killing scores of civilians, men, women, and children. I don't think that helps the cause. I think that's why we need a ground force. That's why all air can do, all air assault can do, however monumental the strike, is drive the bad guys underground. That's why I so much am a fan of the drone strikes, where we pinpoint, where we can kill the leaders. We know them, we track them, we kill them. We need the Russians and the Americans to send in ground troops, first the special operators, then some of the units at brigade level and division level.
That's the only
way to get them out of their holes is to send in soldiers.
Adamantly. What's your take on that, Chuck Nash?
My take is no American kids in the middle of a multi-layer war. This is a civil war. It's a religious war. It is a gang war. There's all kinds of stuff going on. We don't understand the culture. We should understand that by now. However, you've got Sunni Arabs who can play in this. And here's what I think is really going to happen. And I take Geraldo's point about, you know, you kill the father and he's got 6 kids. You've got 6 kids that hate America. I get that. But guess what? We're talking about the Russians going in and the Syrians. So here's the bottom line on this. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see the Russians and the Syrians and their allies start to prosecute ISIS, because now we have shared common objectives in this for the first time. And the United States will be very active in the Iraqi side. The Russians and the Syrians will be very active in the Syrian side. And we have more than enough ground troops to take out 15,000 to 20,000 committed fighters, which is probably all they have. It's just not our guys.
Morgan,
it's their
jump
guys.
In here and Dagan in New York. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things that I've been looking at closely this morning is Dagan, and you have been talking about the funding of ISIS and how they're getting their weapons. I think it's important to note, you know, the attacks that that they just pulled off in Paris are quite cheap. The rifles that they used are about $1,000 on the French black market. So while it's important to cut off their funding, while it's important to look at ground troops, these lone wolves and these people that are affiliated with ISIS can come to Paris, can come to New York, can come to Russia, and for very little cost can pull off these massive attacks.
Maybe, but I mean, you know, it's an interesting point to make, Morgan. But Chuck Nash, I mean, you know, assault weapons are banned here in France, and yet, you know, ISIS fighters were able to bring a whole bunch of armament into this country and not be seen. So how do you get your arms around the armament?
Yeah, and that's kind of the ridiculous nature of this whole gun control argument, which is if you put in gun control, the people who are law-abiding citizens obey the law. The people who aren't don't. So who has the guns? The bad guys. Yeah. This is very straightforward. And the smuggling operations, they smuggle people, they smuggle drugs, they smuggle weapons. Bad guys will smuggle anything that earns them money. And right now, one of the hot items are Kalashnikovs. Why? Because the Russians just updated theirs. There are a whole bunch of older models on the street. Heck, you can buy a surface-to-air missile for the right price.
Captain, thank you. Captain Chuck Nash joining us. We appreciate your insight, sir. We will see you soon.